Morning. We are going to start the first session. And as we tried to mention in the integrating session, the first session will be concentrating and highlighting the mechanism where the SMEs was going to make use of. Of course, that's contrary to the banking traditional sector. Last time, I mean by last time, the 4 past years, there was a leap in the volume of the companies which are working in the financial non-banking services. There was a leap in the number of companies of financing, a leap in the microfinance, and we started to observe that the capital in certain, or the risk capital in certain companies was there. For the time being, or now, all investment banks did create a sector of non-banking financial services. Well, this is a good omen. It's very promising because at least we are seeing new financial toolkit and tools and mechanisms, and there are now alternatives for the companies to go and have finance. Well, I think that this is a new field or a good scope for these companies, and of course, consequently, I will start my session with Miss Gadallah. Ms. Gadallah is the chairman of the Expert Risk Insurance. She does have a great experience. She started in CIB Bank. She spent around more than 15 years there, and then she directed herself to the scope or the sphere, which is the guarantees of risks of experts. She was the chairman of the Egyptian company for experts guarantees since 2006. And now she's having the chairman of the executive director. She's the executive director and head of research of the Egyptian Center for Economic Studies. She's got a lot of training workshops and centers, and she gave and conducted a lot of workshops in the American University and in Jordan and the banking and research institute in Emirates, and a lot of in Egypt, of course. So she's an old hand in this. She's excellent. She has very wide experience. So I'd love that she would start with us this session. Good morning. I will get started first by speaking about the company. What does the company do? And then a little introduction about the company, and then I'll make a linkage of the linkage and how this can serve the SMEs. The Egyptian expert country was founded in 1992. And the objective was, of course, protecting the Egyptian exporters to help them collect their payments from abroad. In order to do that work, in other words, Export Credit Agency, that's our name. More clearly, any country in the world have a similar company. They help exporters to export. They protect their financial entitlements, and will also collect their debts and payments and make them familiar and open for them new markets. Consequently, we started work at 1992. How do we do our work? Our work is divided into 2 classifications. No details for the time being, but in short, it is short-term protection for ready garments, clothes, plastics, chemicals, structures and machines, equipment, but there's another classification or class, which is the average or medium term protection, and that's for the mega projects that keep on going for 2-3 years, specifically in contracting sphere. So in this area of contracting, if someone is gonna construct a railroad, for example, or electrical cables or so on, they need at least 2 or 3 years of work, so we give them the protection. And of course, it's high risk because they go to African countries and there is high risk, so we give them this protection. In short, the short-term protection means that we bring information about the importer. We give him credit limits, so the Egyptian importer knows the limit and the range, which are secured range, vis-a-vis that he guarantees, or we guarantee and protect up to 90% of the collection or of his collection in case there is distressed assets or defaulting, or he cannot repay all the money. This protection of course include political risks, economic risks. Political risks mean, for example, wars, revolutions, volcanoes, sort. And basically, it's the risks or danger areas in the state. Economic risks is of course, the volume of the company, the size, the financial aspects, and the assessment of the financial assets, assessment to the credit work. Then, consequently, we take the burdens off his shoulder or concerning collecting his debts or collecting, she's saying, collecting his entitlement, so that he will have ample time to concentrate on his work, open new markets, because we know we have his back. We are supporting him by giving him the very important information that would help him to take the decision, the right decision. In our work of export credit, we have added a lot of products. The objective was that we are protecting the receivables of the exporters, and the exporters takes care of his products, and he will open new markets. Consequently, this is the activity of collection. This activity of collection is a mechanism that would help the exporter, and there is also local factoring, not find only protection, but protection and the necessary finance for the collectibles of his export activity, i.e. he exports, she's saying, quote, that this export procedure is based on an open account basis. If there are certain documents or the exporter doesn't need me, because here banks are involved, so you have enough protection. So on open account basis exclusively, that's where we come in. As to factoring, basically we put a credit limit for the importer, and I inform the Egyptian exporter to work with him, and the day he exports and give me the necessary documents for exporting, I give him 90% of his collections or his entitlements, and I wait for the credit terms. If he's giving 60, 90 days, 120 days for the importer to pay for him, I give him the money within 48 hours since the moment he exports the freight or the shipment. and I wait the 120 days. I take this burden off his shoulders, so he's selling me his rights in this paper that qualify him to collect his debts from the importer. That's how I help them, or the importers, that he wouldn't have to wait for 120 days to take his money. So the assets conversion are not destroyed, his assets conversion, and this is also a feasible, good, effective way for him to have facilities. For facilities and means to help him to go on with his successive activities and banking activities. How can I help SMEs? Whether it is for the exporter, factoring comes as local also. The main idea is that the exporter is being guaranteed that we will take care of his receivables, they take care of their products. So if there is local collection, both are here in Egypt, but the assessment is for the buyer, not the seller. So when I speak about exporting, it is considered easy for him to take or to have these facilities, because my risk as a credit export company, my risk or our risk is in Germany, United States, Europe, Africa, but not the exporter himself. So that's why I don't make for him any financial assessment, because my risks lie elsewhere. So as a result, when I guarantee the risks, he can take my document and go to the bank. The bank then will be able to finance on basis of the support of this document, because the bank guarantees that in case of the importer is not able to pay, I am paying the bank on behalf of the defaulter. The same goes to the local factoring, which means that I take it upon my shoulder that if his buyer does not pay, I pay for him. Of course, the procedures here are very simple compared to the credit facilities or the loans of the banks, simply because we know that it should be a solid company with a 3 years budget analysis. There's a track record, a strong company without going into details. All these are procedures that takes not more than very short time. When he gave us the buyer's name or importer's name, it would just take us 72 hours to bring the facilities and the mechanisms, either for collection or for my guarantees that I'm guaranteeing the importer, and he would take our document and consider it as a guarantee for the banking institution to give loans based on the availability of this document. In all cases, our work depends on open, or is based on open account. But if someone is dealing with the bank with LCs or letter of guarantees or letter of credit, then he won't need us anymore. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ola. I propose that we keep the questions at the end of the session, in order that we would join all matters together. The second speaker with us is Mr. Tarek Fahmy. Mr. Tarek Fahmy is working in the Lease. He is a member of the Lease. It is one of the biggest company in this field. It is the first company to give its shares in the stock market since December, for 3 months now. It was a very successful transaction. Mr. Tarek, prior to this, was the CEO of Tawfik Supplier Company and member of the Saudi Egyptian Authority, and is member of the Consultative Committee for Lease. Mr. Tarek have worked in international institutions, DHL, Chromo 7, and he spent 18 years in Citibank between Egypt and outside of Egypt as well. He was member of the Credit Policies Committee. He was a member of Citibank and a lecturer at Citibank in Turkey, Egypt, and India. I do not want to be very lengthy. I'm going to give the floor to Mr. Tarek to speak about the lease. Good morning. I'm going to start by a simple definition about the lease. Lease is existing in Egypt since 20 years ago. It started with the new law number 95 for year 1995 and its amendment in law 16 for 2001. There was a great development that took place in this field by the end of the last 6-7 years. I can give you an idea that in 2006, the number of companies who were active in the Egyptian market did not exceed 6 companies. Today, we have reached to have 32 companies in this sector. The volume of real estate lease, volume of contracts was £3 billion. Today, by the end of 2017, is £28 billion. This means that is a very promising market. It is liked by sectors of those who are interested in this. This is a very simple system, that there is a lease company and the client. Among them, there is a contract in order to finance a certain asset. This asset is a capital asset that has a say in production. This is given by a supplier. The company would pay the amount for the supplier and would take the title of this asset, and by the end and after the leaser took all the rent, it is the right of the leaser at the very end to take this asset by a nominal value of £1 or to have a refinance, or this would not be bought by him at the very end. It depends upon the right of this person. It's a very simple system, very quick, very flexible. It includes a lot of advantages pertaining to the method of offering the financial statement. Up till now, the capital asset is not incorporated in the budget of the leaser, so it's an off-balance finance that improves this financial statement, particularly in the ratio of return of asset, and would have different savings in taxes. A credit decision is taken very quickly, because the company and the workflow cycle is shorter than the banks, and hence you can take the approval in 2-3 weeks, credit approval. What is very important as well, that the companies during the last period, it was available for small and SMEs, but with the normal interest rate. The initiative Central Bank of Egypt, I'm speaking about the past, and there was more than 3 or 4 companies specialized in financing the SMEs. But I'm going to speak about this in a different form, because maybe this would be of interest for the SMEs in order to know what is the point of view of the banks. and the non-banking financial institutions in financing the SMEs. Why financing of SMEs was considered to be something that is very acceptable for the banks and companies. Mainly, we did not have a definition. Now we have a specific definition, and this is very important in order that the companies would know on what category are they falling. This led that each company was putting its definition, and this led to great chaos. Secondly, that by nature of the companies working in this field prefer financing big companies or top tier local corporates or multinationals, because these are well fixed credit wise. These are companies that are liked by the banks that are financing them. They have the credit ability to take a loan and to repay the loan, and this is very important for the bank to be satisfied that the money that he's paying he's going to get it once again. This means that these companies have a strong management, governance, track record. They have a future projection or future revenue that could serve the debt resulting from this loan, either financial loan. This makes the banks fearing to finance the SMEs, because for them they are more risky than the big corporates. The big corporates are incorporated in the stock market. There are full disclosure and transparency, a lot of matters that lead that the banks are satisfied to give loans and to assist the big corporate after the credit analysis that these will be repaid once again. At present, we have two parties in this equation. Number one are the banks who are financing and the non-banking financial institutions, and on the other side there are the SMEs. The first party, I believe, they are ready today. There is initiative of Central Bank of Egypt, and I believe that this is an excellent, unprecedented initiative that would give a rate of exchange that less than even obtaining the money, 5%, 7%, 12%, according to the volume of the project and according to the method of financing and so on. And these are matters that are very simple, that could be known easily from the site of the central bank. At the same time, the SMEs should know exactly what are they, how can they be ready to take loans. In the past, we were trying to finance the SMEs, and we had the definition. This definition was from the similar economies in different countries, that we are going to try to identify the categories of the SMEs. After this specific definition, every company would know exactly what are their duties. The simplest method that's requested from the SMEs that they should have an auditor that is certified. What do you mean by certified? Certified from the Central Bank of Egypt and from the auditing authority and the general authority for financial oversight. When we tried for more than 7-8 years ago, and we tried to establish a sector for financing the SMEs, they suffered from the non-credit discipline. They do not want to have an accredited auditor. They have the financial statement that cannot reach the level of being in the level that you can study even. Now, and after this initiative is very clear for all people, and a lot of companies have been introduced in order to enjoy this initiative. I believe that the companies today started to know what are their duties in order to be disciplined and to be qualified for credits, and hence can be take loans. At the very end, no matter the interest rate is subsidized, but the lease companies or the banks at the very end, they want to have a repayment of this loan. They have full responsibility for the loans they are giving to the SMEs, and this should be repaid in addition to the interest. Hence, this initiative have led that there is great awareness taking place for whatever is requested from the SMEs, and to start being qualified for credits in order to be among the big corporates. They have a strong board of directors, they have their policies, evidences, and this system, procedures, policies, committees, separation of ownership from the management, governance. They have 3 budgets capable of being studied and deciding to give the credit. Matters should be very clear from another part, and the SMEs should start the right path in order to take loans through this initiative, or even through the normal interest rate. So this is my point of view concerning this, that both parties have a responsibility. The responsibility from the first party is giving this excellent initiative of Central Bank of Egypt, subsidized interest rate, and the conditions are very simple. It does not include any problem. The second party as well has a responsibility to be qualified in order to be able to obtain these loans from the lease companies or from the banks in an easy manner. The lease companies during the coming period are trying to obtain credits from the banks through the initiative of Central Bank of Egypt, in order that they would be a guarantee and to be considered as the agent for this initiative, and the lease companies would be a distributor for this initiative. But this is taking place at present, and we have given different facilities from the bank to the SMEs in order to finance with the same rate and subsidized interest from Central Bank. And thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Tarek. The last speaker is Mr. Hany Tawfik. He has a long experience in the field of securities and direct investment. He is a founder member of the Egyptian Financial Association and Hermes and EFG Hermes. He started by the money market and established this market. At present, he has different posts and members of board of directors in different companies, and he is one of the founders, and he is the treasurer of the Egyptian Association for Securities, and a founder and chairman of the Egyptian Association for Direct Investment and the Arab Federation for Direct Investment. Thank you very much. Good morning to all of you. In fact,
well, actually, the SMEs and the defaulting or distressed assets companies have certain typical characteristics. If you go into these characteristics in the defaulting or SMEs, you'll find something like 95%, around 95%, there's double booking a certain budget to the taxes. This is fabricated and is kitchened in 15 minutes, but the real papers he's keeping or burning it or whatever, gets rid of them. So the real life experience in the SMEs, as I told you, whether it's a defaulting or a small companies, this one-man show companies. The one person takes all the decisions of buying, selling, traveling, everything. Number two, financial administration, which is very poor. In order for him to reach cost reduction, he brings in materials, or he doesn't have an audit or an accountant, not only to evade but also to reduce cost. Technical administration, very poor. Now engineers, but people who are hiding profits, not only for the taxes evasion, but also to make the workers abstain from asking to participate in the profits. There is no automation in the institution. It's all Excel sheets or manual sheets. There is no communication with banking or with banks unless it's very narrow scope. Where they take cash. As I told you, there is no legal ownership for the fixed assets. He doesn't have anything. He has land by squint or de facto acquisition of land, smuggling also. Is very prevalent. I've been into this experience. One of them was ready garment companies. He imports and he locally manufactures ready garments. All the ready garments come through being smuggled from abroad, coming from Damietta and putting made in Egypt. So I protested against that. I said, of course, pay your customs, pay your taxes. Now they are facing insolvency, and the man is, running away, and he's not paying his debts. So if all the companies do not come under the official sector or financial inclusion, then I think that any attempt is a failure. Okay, now we are headlining the investors, who we try, of course, to encourage them, doing our best. And I'm very pleased from Councillor Hisham Ragab to hear that there are certain advantages for funds, investment funds and companies in the SMEs. There are three kinds of investors in the SMEs. The first one is the investors who come in with new ideas that they adopt in an unofficial way until he makes sure that it is in the commercial phase. Then the venture capitals, in this case, these companies are in the early stage. It's a very primary company that is starting to evolve. They need someone to come in and adopt them financially and bring them to the commercial, or help them to witness the commercial stage. Statistically, 10 companies get in, but only one company is successful, and this one company makes up for all the losses. Maybe you won't be surprised if you know that Apple and Microsoft started as ideas in people's heads, and the security, which is only $1, $10, has been transformed into millions of dollars. So the venture capital, we don't have in Egypt venture capital funds, or because, of course, for a lot of reasons, I would say, but realistic point of view, the funds in this SMEs is prevalent. For example, if I have a fund and I go witness what's happening in the SMEs, I want to see growth, I want to see a story, I want to see development in this issue. Last week I received a very good company, and this is one of the good effects of floating and economic reform, a company manufacturing children toys, and all the materials are local. And 3 years ago, he had no idea, but with the floating, of course, foreign toys are very expensive. Now he's selling by about 2 million pounds per month. He started from scratch, you know. This is one of the things that you can really get into while you are 100% assured. So I make value creation as an investment fund. I go into a company where there is the characteristics of nothing at all and no documents, nothing at all. So that's why we come in. That's where we come in. That's why, of course, also we are asking the country when it looks into the fund, investment fund of SMEs, they have to put into consideration that these people, are sometimes they need this support from the state. So I have to separate ownership from administration. This is very important. The one-man show is no more viable. It can't work any way. I have to impose myself as a chairman or a member of directors according to the finance I handle. And by the way, the customizing of the financial plan, of course, differs for every country. So either companies with distressed assets, defaulting, or SMEs, they have a certain different capital structure. Sometimes you have to get into by capital, sometimes you have to give them loans, sometimes you have to help them to get loans of 5 or 7%. So you need to make their filings every and each day. You receive the company owner screaming for help, telling you our shipment is in the customs, there are problems, we have problems with the taxes. So you, as administering the investment fund on SMEs or for SMEs, you are continuously on call around the clock. You receive, a lot of asking for rescue procedures. But you come in, you don't have any, they have no documents, so you start like it is a company which is very new. You start to put for him documents, you start to appoint a financial manager, you start to receive daily financial reports to check whether the man is going right on track or whether there are deviations, so that we catch them early. We try to open new markets for these companies, and we make memberships for boards of directors for follow-up. If I'm getting into minority, there is a checklist of minority protection where I have to go into everything. By the way, those into the SMEs, I have also their exit plans, where I have an agreement with the person before I get in. I know what I'm heading to, and I have everything planned from day one. Sometimes there are options where you give your securities after you change it into a venture company. Of course, they have priority in this case. So we try our best to work on the SMEs projects, to develop them. And of course, I wish that Councillor Hisham Raga to look into the GP structure that is available in all the funds. It's not a coincidence that all the investment funds activities are either offshore and coming to invest in Egypt, or SPV in Egypt. It becomes an investment company and not a fund. We just want to have a trustee company where there are partners, GP, and 10 of us agreed that we will have a fund. We don't need very long procedures. As an investment manager, I'm a participating partner, and this is done in 4 or 5 days, and we started operating real work immediately. So we don't waste time with thousands of auditors and censorship and monitoring agencies and so on. We really are looking forward that there should be streamlining of all the procedures and companies working, and also we are looking forward to easy taxes or relevant taxes for different people or different companies. Thanks a lot, and I'm ready for any comment or question.
Thank you, Mr. Hany. You have spoken about very important topics, and I'm sure that there will be a lot of questions. I have a comment concerning the funds for SMEs. Apart of the challenge that you are changing a company that is not financially disciplined to a really disciplined financial company, when we look to other markets, the role of these funds is to open more scope for those companies, either from the corporate governance or to open markets according to certain relationships. All these are positive points. When you have mentioned these, this is to solve problems of bureaucracy from the negative aspect and not the positive one. And this is the feature of the emerging markets, and hence the effort and time that the investment manager is passing in solving problems are more than those for opening new markets for the SMEs or to maximize the corporate governance of the companies. The other part is when there is a problem, unfortunately, the judiciary in Egypt lasts a long period. If investment fund would differ from one of the investment companies in order to take his right, this can last years and years in litigation. I had participated in one of those funds in America. We were giving loans to SMEs. One of the companies confronted default, and we gave the loan according to a real estate asset. Since the default, there was a foreclosure, and we took the sentence foreclosure, and we took the ownership of this real estate, and we sold this in the market. The period for all this process lasted 3 months, and the bill of the lawyer was $10,000 because the attorney is doing nothing. He's filling a form, he goes to the court, and thank you, foreclosure took place, and you go to the broker to sell this. This procedure to take place in Egypt, we know the time, the very lengthy time in order that you can reach this. I want to listen to your opinion, but in order to implement such matter, it was going to last long in Egypt. So the investment manager who have £100 million to invest, he will not invest in an economic way, and hence we do not find a lot of such funds. I believe that this is a big problem